Okay, I'll call the meeting to order. This is the inaugural meeting of the Affordable Housing Commission. Welcome, everyone. Good to see everyone in person. First, thank you all for volunteering to take this on. There's a fair amount of work to do over the next year. As I was saying, we're not going to solve it all here tonight, but hopefully we can at least get some of the key housekeeping chores done and share some of the most important information we need to share, and at least start to engage some of the most time-sensitive priorities we're going to have going forward. So,
Mike, I can report that we did make the adjustment in the membership at our last selectmen's meeting.
Great. Very good. So I'll follow up on that. We did have one of the original members is not going to be able to serve and resign, and on Monday the Board of Selectmen appointed Bill Belluzzi as a full member. So we currently, as a result, we currently have an opening for an alternate. No. And just a quick note on alternates. Well, alternates don't have the ability to vote in a given meeting unless they're seated as a full member in the event that a regular member is absent. The alternate members will be welcome and encouraged to participate in the discussion and share their ideas. So it's really, it comes down to voting. So, as I said, we have a fair amount of work to do, but before we dig in, why don't we take a minute to introduce ourselves, and then I will ask Tim to make a few opening comments to get us going. So I'll start. Michael Foliano. I'm a 29-year resident of Old Lyme. Raised 3 children here. Have since retired from Pfizer R&D a few years ago. My wife is a former school board member for 16 years, so we've been at least aware of what's going on at some level in town, and very much looking forward to taking advantage of the Board of Selectmen and the town's, what I would say is wisdom in putting this commission together and really establishing it as part of the town government. So we're going to have a real opportunity. I'm looking forward to engaging.
Me? Jen Miller. I am 20 years here, and also with Pfizer, retired in 2017, and 2 kids, 2 boys through the schools, and they're loving life now. They're not in the schools, but I'm also on the Board of Ed, which is a really great opportunity. I'm sure your wife was the same, but been happy to do that. I also am on the Board of Directors for Habitat for Humanity for Eastern Connecticut, and been there for 6 years as a volunteer and also as a board member. We're currently looking for a new executive director. Ours is retiring after 20-some years, so that's been really helpful, I think, to understand the landscape of Connecticut and the needs in the communities around here, and especially in New London and Windham counties, which is the counties that we serve. Very much looking forward to with Michael on the exploratory committee last year, and I think we made a lot of good headway, and so I'm looking forward to getting things done.
My name is Bill Belluzzi, and until Monday night I was an alternate. I'm new to Old Lyme, new to Connecticut. We lived our whole lives in New Jersey and have relocated here. I'm now totally retired. COVID put me over the retirement. I was doing a little work in schools. I've been a school principal and superintendent in New Jersey, and so I'm also on the Board of Trustees at the First Congregational Church, and have become interested in affordable housing and many of the issues surrounding income inequality and things of that nature. So I'm happy to be here and hope that perhaps my experience in education and just dealing with people will be a plus. My kids are grown. They're both teachers, so I'm proud of that. And my daughter actually followed us to Connecticut, and she teaches at Valley Regional in Deep River.
Awesome.
So I'm happy to be here. Thank you for the opportunity.
I'm John Coughlin. I've been in Old Lyme for 16 years. I'm a lifelong Connecticut resident. I was actually on the committee with these guys last time, and we got some good stuff done, but we got a lot more to do. And I think this is going to be a really good committee. And what do I do for a living is take care of hospitals and large buildings and public, housing authority, stuff like that. It's kind of how what our business does. And I've been in building for a long, long time, 30 years doing different things. So I think I'll bring some experience to this, dealing with the tenant end, but also the residents and also the building end.
I'm Amy Hosier. I'm also a year in Old Lyme at this point. My husband and I we lived in Stamford for quite some time, and we then wound up moving to D.C. and lived in Bethesda. And when my husband and I both semi-retired, we decided we wanted to get back to Connecticut. We have a daughter here who's a resident in OBGYN down at Yale, and she just got married, and so we're enjoying all of that. In terms of our background, or my background, I've worked in this area and been a planner and a researcher. I have a PhD in city and regional planning from Penn. I've worked as a city planner. I have been in the housing advisor to set up housing, a modern finance system in Poland with USAID, and positions like that. The most relevant one was a nonprofit organization called Homes for Working Families that I worked for in D.C. until the financial crisis, when all of our board members had to step down. They were Fannie and Freddie and those sorts of people. But it was really an interesting window into opportunities that were imagined for affordable housing. And so I've been working with NeighborWorks and Ford Foundation and clients like that on issues that are related to affordable housing. And I want to be a part of the community, and this is the place I thought I could make a contribution.
I'm Karen Winters. I am Lime Old Lyme High School alum, as well as my husband. I have two sons that are fifth generation from Center School, so we've been here a bit. I was honored to be part of the inaugural group and pleased to stick around to actually put some shovels in the ground, I hope. I've got extensive branch banking experience, and now I'm in the insurance industry, so hopefully I can bring the financial swing to our needs. And I'm excited to get something done.
My name is George Cloud. I'm relatively new to Old Lyme, as they say in Vermont. Unless you were born there, you're relatively new. Actually, I bought a house out on Rogers Lake in 1993. I was living in West Hartford, raising 4 kids, and we didn't permanently move to Old Lyme until 2010. Retired now. I spent most of my life in banking. I like to say that I've seen the bad and the good of banking. I was in banking in Boston during the 1970s, and nobody has to look any further than Boston to be an example of redlining. Mm-hmm. And I was witness to that as part of my career in the Shawmut organization. I moved back to Connecticut, where I was a native. I grew up in Millington. Claim to fame, I'm supposedly best friend of Billy Rogers, the marathon runner. But on the serious side, I raised 4 kids for 37 years in West Hartford, served on the board for the University of Hartford, also was a soccer coach and was on the board for the soccer league. When it came down to Old Lyme, I like to think that I followed in my wife's footsteps. My wife runs the Common Good Gardens over in Saybrook. She's president of that organization and very active in Duck River. I also served as a stewardship committee with the First Congregational Church and had the pleasure of accompanying Steve on a trip to, of all places, Americus, Georgia, where there is a farm down there that is an intentionally integrated community. Now you got to remember, Georgia, 1940s. The minister from Ohio went down and decided it might be a good idea to integrate a community in Georgia and intentionally have an integrated community at that time. As I and Steve were sitting in our beds at night, I don't know how Steve perceived it, but I imagined the stories of the gunshots and the fire bombings that took place at that farm during the 40s and 50s. It was a tough slog, but they're still there. It's kind of my inspiration to look to obvious opportunities to help create a community that's inclusive, diverse, and above all, affordable. And that's why I'm hopefully going to be able to serve in the capacity. My background in banking switched, I should say, for the last 30 years. I ran the financial planning department for Advest for 7 years, and then the last 12 years of my career with People's United Bank, where I ran their financial planning department.
Thank you, George. Well, it sounds like we have an interesting blend of folks who have been here for a real long time, and some folks that haven't been here for so long, and a real variety of backgrounds. So I think that bodes well for the kind of ideas we're going to be able to generate and move forward. So thanks, everybody. Tim, would you like to take the floor, make some comments?
Well, good. This is really impressive that we have so many members who were involved with the first phase. You weren't scared off.
We could have gotten off?
Yeah. No, but this is important work. And we have some front and center things. We have the McCulloch property, which has 2 affordable lots that Dave McCulloch identified that the town could turn into affordable housing. They are in close proximity to 2 other houses located off of Flat Rock Hill Road. So when they are developed, that would be 4 houses in that vicinity. There's a 5-year time frame during which the town could implement these houses. I think we're in the 2nd year, so we're not up against a terrible time crunch, but time does go by. Mm-hmm. And so I think we need to figure out a process for evaluating developers such as Hope or Habitat, and there might be others, so to make it a fair process and get that moving. And generally in town, I think we're all aware that our statistics are low in terms of the 10%, which is a goal. And so I think Mark Diebold had a proposal which on Hatchetts Hill Road he was proposing to construct around 220 units, 30% of which would be affordable. That terrain there is very rocky and terrible. If you remember when Bridebrook was developing their property on the other side of the access to Rocky Neck Park from the interstate, it just like that, I gather. It's just a big rocky knob, and Mark was prepared to work it through, but he needed to get sewer. Sewer is having worked through the Soundview Sewer project for a couple of years now, it is not an easy proposition. The 3 beaches in the town of Oline, Soundview, number 4, are mandated to install sewers along the beaches. So you would need a whole new system. They're going to be gravity systems and a force main going from Oline to East Line pumping station, and through East Line to Waterford, through Waterford to New London, and ultimately the plant. The plant in New London is not large enough, really, I think, to handle the demand that this area has. So they aren't just saying, oh, you want to come? We got capacity, let's go. It's not easy. And the town, which, and the 3 beaches are mandated to do this, so we've been having a very difficult time getting all the T's crossed and implementing our agreements. And then we have to also have intermunicipal agreements with East Lyme and Waterford to use the pipes going there. So Diebold wanted to go across 4 Mile River Road just past Hatchett's Hill into Colton Road. And in Colton Road there is water sewer there's a public works facility in there with East Lyme. And he was asking me what to do, and I said, well, I can give you some names. We're having our issues with New London ourselves, so I really can't do too much for you, but I can at least give you some names. So he's been quiet of late, so I'm not sure where that stands. But that would have, were that project to happen, it might produce about 60 units or more than 60, which would be a big increase. Onesie-twosies is nice, but it's not really moving the needle that much. And as we know, while there are properties that are affordable in town, either to buy or to lease, it has to be deed restricted. So it probably, the statistic makes it seem worse than it is, but that's true for all towns and cities. So I think that if we can continue to work with landowners, I know the Open Space Committee is very willing to talk to donors of open space about would they be willing to carve out, such as McCulloch did, a parcel or 2 or whatever to be in the same way that McCulloch did. That would continue that effort. I think the town has something in the neighborhood of 1,000 acres of open space, and then there are some conservation easements and all that. We don't have as much open space as Lyme has, which is over 50% I'm reading, and they're having our meeting tonight. So it'll be a challenge. There are not a lot of large parcels around that can be developed. There are some of the parcels, even for business, the Economic Development Commission is talking about how can we improve our business profile, and there's not a lot of commercial zone property, light industry zone property. So we will have to keep a good eye on where things might be situated as we go forward. But it's going to be a challenge, no doubt, and I think this group has some impressive credentials, and I think we have a good chance to do some nice things here. So on the Board of Selectmen, we thank all of you for willing to give your time. We know time is precious, and we all have a lot of things to do nowadays, and anybody who volunteers to be on a board, commission, all the things in town, we probably have about 150 people on boards and commissions and committees, and you add the fire department, the ambulance, the town runs on volunteers, really. It's wonderful. So you're part of that, and we thank you.
Thank you, Tim.
Yeah.
So lest there be any doubt that we have our work cut out for us. Okay. Let's move into a few housekeeping items to just get the committee all official and stood up and have a meeting schedule and all the logistics we need to do our work. So the first item of business in that category would be election of a chairman and a vice chairman. So without further ado, I will accept nominations for chairman.
I nominate Mike.
I second that.
I third that.
Okay. Okay. Any other nominations? Okay. Hearing none, we'll close the nominations. I don't think we need to go to a written vote on this one.
No.
You're good. Make it official. Vote.
So, all in favor of...
Aye.
Thank you for the honor. Okay, on to vice chairman. And I will open nominations, and I will get the ball rolling by nominating Jen Miller for vice chairman.
I'll second that.
Any further nominations? Hearing none. Those in favor of electing Jen Miller vice chairman signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Good. Okay. Thank you, Jen.
And you're in the right spots here.
Exactly.
The sun's in your eyes. It was.
No, we got that shade.
Okay. On to some logistics then. Meeting calendar. So it was kind of easy to propose a meeting cadence because just about one of the only evenings that's open for this facility are the third Wednesdays. So Michelle Moran has graciously put a hold on that for us, pending us confirming that that's when we'd like to meet. We had this one at 6 o'clock. I know we have some folks that are still working. I don't know exactly what the time is. If we could slide the time one way or the other if 6 o'clock is not optimal for everyone.
Fine with me.
It's good with me.
Yeah, if you need to move it, I'm fine, or keep it where it is.
Yeah,
Fine.
Bill? Okay. 6 p.m., third Wednesday of the month,
All right.
here in the meeting hall. We were talking about this before the meeting started, but I know the state has legislation pending to allow virtual meetings after the state of emergency. I don't know if that's passed or
Yeah,
not.
if you permit, I was just on the governor's call, and in-person meetings can be de rigueur. You know, they can be the thing you can do. If there are individuals who want to be on the phone, that can be arranged. But in-person meetings should be fine if people are comfortable with that. You don't, you know, if you do have what's called a hybrid meeting where you have people in the meeting room and then people on the phone,
Which we're in right now.
yeah, then that's permissible. If it comes to voting, I think you can easily identify the members, even those who might be on the phone, so that should be fine. When June 30th is the time when these executive orders will sunset. Not all executive orders are going beyond the 20th of May, but there will be 4 executive orders, some of which govern meetings, that will go beyond that till June 30th. At that point, they're trying to see whether the legislature might approve a structure for remote meetings to be more permanent. For board and commissions, it's probably a little more easily done. For town meetings, it's not so easy because you can't tell who's on the phone that would have a right to vote as a citizen.
Sure.
So those meetings might have to be in person, or that, because if you start allowing people to comment on the phone, I heard that you have to let those people vote on the phone. And unless you have everybody on a Zoom TV kind of thing, you're never sure who you're listening to. So anyway, in terms of your regular meetings, the hybrid would probably work certainly through June, and then we'll see what transpires.
Very good. Thank you, Tim. Okay, I will send out the actual calendar, which is June 16th, July 21st, August 18th, September 15th, October 20th, November 17th, and December 15th, which we got lucky in December because it's a relatively early third Wednesday.
And then at the end of the year, the chairman's required to submit to the town clerk the schedule of meetings for the following year. Yeah.
Very good.
Yep.
And did everybody have a chance to look through the Freedom of Information Act documentation and the video of the workshop that was held here? So in addition, this is our regular meeting schedule, and that will be posted. And we'll hold those meetings. And the agenda, though it has to be posted in advance, there's some flexibility to change the agenda once you start the meeting for a regular meeting. I also imagine that we'll supplement our regular meeting schedule occasionally with special meetings, which have a fixed agenda, and that can't be changed during the meeting.
Or added.
Or added, right. So we'll work with that, and I'll actually suggest a couple of those before we leave today. Okay, so regarding FOIA, it's been, well, first of all, the practice of the Affordable Housing Committee was to maintain 100% transparency. And while we were meeting virtually, it was easy to record our meetings. We had expressed intent before we had to go virtual due to the pandemic that we would record our meetings and post the recordings, even if it's not required to do so because we're in a hybrid. We're in a hybrid meeting today, so we have to record it according to the executive order. But I would propose that we do a voice recording of all our meetings and post those so that the public will be able to access it after the meeting, even if we don't have an open phone line. It also makes minutes a whole lot easier.
Yes, it certainly does.
So if everyone's on board with that, then we'll adopt that as a practice as well. Okay. The other item is we had also, at least for all of our regular meetings, included public comment as part of the agenda at all of our meetings. Again, I would propose that at least at our regular meetings, we would include public comment and provide the community an opportunity to tell us what they're thinking. So if there's no objection to that, I'd propose that we adopt that as one of our standard practices.
Sure, no objection.
Very good. The key word here is transparency. And if we do that, then we will not have much to worry about staying on the right side of the FOIA. Okay. A bit more logistics. Bear with me. Email. So you've been receiving emails from the Affordable Housing Town address. Been using that for more or less official communications, mostly outbound to the committee for the agendas and materials and such. There will be, that also is a repository where if we need to create a public record, we can copy that email box and then we'll have a public record without having to worry about having documents out in folders or in individual computers, what have you. So a question that I have for you and just the logistics for the committee. As you've seen, I've been distributing the information and materials kind of one way with the personal email addresses of the members, blind copied, so they're masked. My personal practice is to not share email addresses without permission. But I think as we go forward and we look at the work we'll have to do, it would probably be useful to be able to communicate directly. With the caveat that we can't really do business by email, We need to have a public meeting to do that. So we can't deliberate, we can't make decisions by email, but you can at least share information. You just have to watch it and watch crossing the line into having a real discussion and making, or even creating the impression that you're making a decision. But if you're comfortable working within those limits and sharing personal emails, I can create a contact list so that as we form committees and we have work to do.
100% agree. It was so frustrating last year not to be able to email people.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Amy, you good? Look at that. Okay. I have the emails that were submitted as part of your application, your volunteer application. If you'd like an email other than that to be used for the distribution list, please let me know. Otherwise, I'll just compile those and send them out to everybody. How about phones?
As far as Mike, as the address, as the repository goes, so I know we shared a lot of documents last year over emails and stuff like that. So where are those final copies? Are they on the Lime Old Lime Town? The Old Lime Town?
Well, they're in two places, actually. So one is any public records that were created during our meetings were submitted to the town clerk for the file of the committee, and we'll do the same thing with the commission. And I also retained it on.
Is that a web-based folder that we can?
I don't believe so. Frankly, I don't know what the technology is.
You know what I mean? It's like
it may be a paper file.
To like a folder on the Old Lime website that says,
So what we don't have, and this is one of the earlier questions I asked, is any kind of sort of shared
a team
architect.
worksite. Yeah.
We don't have that's not accessible to
The
you.
town is migrating from first-class email, which has been horrible, to Outlook.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So it will be stored in the town hall computer, all in and out stuff from the affordable housing. Now if you use your personal email for the town affordable housing and there was some kind of discovery, I think you would be required to produce emails that you personally have relating to that, but not beyond that. But I don't think the likelihood of that's very high. But,
And if you're concerned about it or you have any doubt, just CC that affordable housing at olimect.gov, and then there'll be a copy of the email filed.
Well, you know what would be helpful? Like, so on the Board of Ed, we have a Region 18 email, right? So anybody who's in Region 18 can use their repositories and stuff, like their cloud storage. But our committee, like the Sustainability Committee, is outside of, we have volunteers from the community. So they don't have Region 18 email addresses. But what the school did for us was set up a Microsoft Teams site, where we could, if you had that draft, remember how many times we went over that draft and had to edit?
No, we don't remember.
So it would be so much easier maybe if we had like a cloud storage area where we could access, and edit the same document, at the same time. So
Tim said, my understanding is we're going to Outlook, so
yeah, if we're going to
should
Outlook,
provide
that would be so much easier.
Yeah.
So
that will happen hopefully in a couple of months.
Okay.
But first class is barely usable.
Yeah, correct. Yeah. With Outlook, it's definitely possible. So down the road, maybe we'll think about that.
Okay, so we'll, and I understand from Michelle that that'll be a few months at least, but hopefully we can make do until we have access to that technology, which would be really enabling. Okay, thanks for hanging in through the deep technical details. Just a quick note on the commission webpage. So the webpage has been set up. It's pretty much a stub right now. There's a link to the founding ordinance. Did everybody get a chance to read the founding ordinance? Good. If you want to go through that, we can go through that. I didn't put it on the agenda to go through it line by line. Hopefully it's intelligible.
It was very good.
Okay.
Thank you again.
Welcome. So it just has a few links on there right now. And importantly, it has a link for folks outside who can send email in. using a form, and that also goes to the affordable housing.
And that link goes to the affordable housing, so you get
Yeah,
that.
so we
Yeah, I saw
can
that.
take public comments via that link,
Oh, that's great.
and so I think that's a real good
Or public
opportunity.
questions, I imagine.
It's actually been surprisingly quiet,
Okay.
so we only had a couple. Okay, so that what I wanted to raise about the web page is we do have a web page. It's immature right now, but as we go through the agenda, one of our priorities, I think, is going to be to establish a community outreach
I agree.
program. So that web page could be part of that. It certainly won't be all of it, but it could be an important part of that. So let's hold that thought. We do have some technology in our corner. Okay. Anything else under logistics, practices, protocols, schedules?
I do wonder about when we talk about public comment at the end of our meetings, should there be the option to limit public comment for length?
Yeah, and I think we can do that. Tim, you can help me with this. I'm doing this on the basis of observing how other boards and commissions have worked. It's basically an
I
instruction
just feel like we don't want to
chair
put the
in real
rules
time.
after people start
Yeah.
calling in. If
Yeah.
we just do it ahead of time, it seems more.
Fair.
Yeah. Oh, we could
It's
put
not
that
like
on the
we're
agenda
targeting
then.
individual people or.
To have it be a couple of minutes. And
Yeah.
very good.
The Board of Ed is 3
Three.
minutes.
3 minutes.
Yeah, 3 minutes. We do.
Good.
I think if we're clear, out in the open, ahead of time,
Good.
Do you want to put that to a vote?
I don't think that. I
Fine,
think we can
okay, great, perfect.
if there's a consensus to adopt that as a practice, a 3-minute limit on public comment.
Sounds great to me.
Okay. Anything else on calendar, logistics, technology? Okay. We're in business. All right. Next item is some updates. I think we'll do this most meetings. This has turned out to be this area of affordable housing has turned out to have a level of activity in the legislature and public policy and the community that surprised me. So let me just get through this. We'll do this regularly and you've seen via email. I'll send some of this stuff out, and we'll also do it at our meetings. So the first thing is, just yesterday I attended that cost workshop that I sent you all the link to. The Connecticut Council of Small Towns, of which Old Lyme is a member, and they provide some newsletters, some bulletins, some alerts, and also some webinars that can help us. And yesterday's was a planning workshop where they had a representative from the consultant firm that had authored the planning guide that the DOH had issued, and who walked through that a little bit. It wasn't terribly informative because it was basically a PowerPoint recap of the PDF file that you all had access to. But it also included some local towns that are a little bit ahead of the curve on planning, and also some of two of the regional councils of government, one of which was RiverCog, which is the Council of Governments for the Lower Connecticut River Valley. And I learned some very interesting stuff there. So I'm going to cut to the chase. So actually, first of all, when we look at the planning guide and all the various dimensions of it, I should back up and just say this is in reference to the 5-year plan mandated under CGS 830J that is due at the end of June in 2022.
we don't do that, right? That's not us.
Oh yeah.
Oh, what?
Oh yeah.
It is? Oh.
That was, I think, number 1 on our charge.
But I didn't think that was going to be solely us.
No, I think we're going to deliver it to the Board of Selectmen for adoption. It will require a lot of networking to get it done, but we'll be the hub of it. So it's squarely in our court. So the good news is, and for those of you who were on the committee, we made a serious effort to put our successors, which we are now, we're on successors, for those of you who are on the committee, in a good position to prepare that plan through the research we did for the report we issued at the end of our tenure. So we're in pretty good shape. We didn't miss any big pieces that we didn't know about. So that's good news. Some really good news is that RiverCog has acquired resources to do a regional housing needs assessment that will include a specific housing needs assessment for 13 of the towns in the lower Connecticut River Valley region, of which Old Lyme is one of those 13. So we're going to get a lot of help with the housing needs analysis. And that's great news, because I looked at some of the literature on doing those on our own. It would have been a pretty heavy lift. It's not required for the 830J plan. It's suggested, so we could have had an acceptable 830J plan without it. But I think if we're going to have a sound strategy and plan, it's going to want to be informed by a solid housing needs analysis.
Well, and that's what we did well before, is that everything we did was factually based.
Yeah.
Yes.
So that's just music to my ears that RiverCog is going to be taking the lead on that.
When are they doing that?
Say again?
When are they doing that?
It's happening now. So they put the RFP out several weeks ago, and I think they selected a consultant. So there's also a regional plan that's going to be created. That'll overlay all of the individual town plans. So we're connected into that effort. I'm on the email list, and I'm just getting pings right now, but there's been no initial meetings. They're just still getting the resources together. But it was great news. I hadn't heard that before yesterday in the statewide meeting, that RiverCog was going to be doing that housing needs assessment.
Are you on RiverCog?
I'm not on RiverCog, but I have our committee, and now our commission is a point of contact in Old Lyme for the affordable housing aspect of it. Do we have a representative on RiverCog? Do we have a representative on RiverCog?
Well, the CEOs of the various towns are on the board, and then they have a land trust subset. And, so
I know Harold's been involved in the regional plan conservation.
Sam Gold is the head of it, and he's actually, I think, been elected the kind of the chief COG guy throughout the state, so he's a vibrant person.
Yeah, and Sam Gold's been great, and Eliza up there has been very responsive. So I think good things are going to happen in our relationship with RiverCog. That'll come up again. Okay. Now the bad news. So it's clear that we are behind the curve on community outreach. So we specifically didn't get into that in the committee, but it's going to be a very important part of getting a plan created and adopted in time for June of next year. So again, this will come up shortly, but I'd suggest that as one of our top priorities for the short term, is to think that through and start to connect the dots for a community outreach program.
Now that's part of our 830J plan?
Not part of the 830J plan per se, but it's on the critical path to actually getting an 830J plan adopted by the community. So there's a fair amount of work to do there. And that's really a local effort. That's not something that none of the regional or state level folks can know.
And when you say adopted by the community, is that something that goes out to a town vote? Or what do you mean by adopted by the community?
The legislation is really vague. Actually, if you guys go online into Chapter 126A on the Connecticut General Statutes, you can look at 830J, and I was shocked when I saw it, because it's only about this long.
Really?
Yeah, there's not much to it. It basically just says that the plan will be adopted. It doesn't say how. So I infer that that the Board of Selectmen will adopt it as the executives will see it.
There it is.
Yes, that's it. So there it is. It's about that big.
Half a page.
Yeah, I've never seen that before.
So that goes back to my question. So adopted by whom? I mean, so the Board of Selectmen?
By the town.
Right, I
And so I
understand
think
that.
Which is the selectmen.
Okay.
Which is this one. That is
That
exactly.
sounds a little less daunting.
Yes. So no, I don't think it needs to be adopted like an ordinance is.
Okay.
That's not my interpretation. We'll check on that. But what I'm getting from the other
No, it's
towns
not
is
like
that
a referendum.
no,
Right,
no,
it's
they're-
But I
But
think
if you
you
have the
want
plans to
buy-in, right, I think
Yeah.
you want buy-in from the community in terms of what...
Without buying it from the community, we won't be successful.
Exactly.
Exactly, that's what I'm
And-
saying.
and
So
support it.
you can submit and approve a plan, and if it doesn't have the buy-in from the community, won't be doing much.
A one-way ticket to shelfware. Okay, so that's the meeting yesterday, and I mentioned that that regional plan is getting started, and we'll be dialed into that. Okay, second thing, the McCulloch Family Open Space. That's been out there. They're in the transition between the committee and the commission. There's been some activity on that. There's been some discussions between the First Congregational Church and Habitat for Humanity. I think there's an opportunity there, and whether that specific opportunity bears fruit or not, that's one of our ticking priorities, or time-sensitive priorities. So that's something we're going to want to engage quickly. And when we get into priorities next, we'll have more discussion on that. So hold that thought. One other bit of information, Tim, correct me on this. My understanding from conversation with Howard Margulies is that there's going to be a cross-commission forum set up at some point soon.
Across what?
Cross-commission forum.
Oh, yeah, EBC with Howard, yes.
Yeah,
We're hoping probably to roll that out in June.
sounds good. So no real news there yet, other than one of our really important roles is going to be network. So affordable housing either touches or is touched by a lot of different pieces of the town government, whether it's planning, zoning, open space, sustainable old line, land use, and wetlands. So it's really it touches a lot of the government. So this will Tim, just my personal feedback is that'll be a great forum to surface some of these cross commission opportunities. So,
Right.
for example, it makes sense to me that we would have just one demographic forecast and one economic forecast, and just some of the underlying data we would only do once, and so that all the boards and commissions were coming at their various planning and implementation duties from the same base of data. But that's too big, so that's good news. Last thing on this, I don't know if you've been keeping track, but this legislative session in Hartford has been extremely active on affordable housing and zoning issues. So I'm not going to go through all of it, but we had talked in the committee about the Desegregate Connecticut, had a platform, and that actually came out as some legislation. The Open Communities Alliance had that fair share housing model, and that came out as some legislation, and there was a lot more. It's still working its way through the sausage factory in Hartford, and it'll read out in June. But I can tell you that both the Connecticut Mirror and the Connecticut Examiner have had some good coverage on this. So I encourage you to check in on those two websites just to keep yourself informed on what's going on in Hartford. I don't know if it's because I'm paying more attention now or if it's actually more active, but it seems
I
to
think
be.
we pay more attention.
Yeah. It seems, particularly housing, seems to be.
Well, on that issue, I think.
Yeah, really active.
Well, I think, SB 1024 is definitely more active. They're going to vote on it in the next 3 weeks, so that's definitely something to pay attention to.
Okay, so that's what I had. Anything that anyone else would like to share, just as background information?
Just a note on that, like to build on that. So Desegregate Connecticut is an alliance of many corporations and public people. But it's a good website to go to. Like you can sign up for their emails, to get informed, stay informed of what they're doing and what they're proposing. And most of it right now is around SB 1024. So it's a good way to stay informed. And their focus is on a lot of the transportation hubs in Connecticut, of which we are not one, but also on ADUs. And that's something that we discussed last year as being something that maybe we could capitalize has on here in Old Lyme is, the viability of ADUs in Old Lyme. So that's something in their proposal that we should consider.
Thanks, John. And a lot of those links are on the references section of the committee report that we'll send you the link to. They should be direct clickable. Okay, that was item 6. Item 7, initial work planning. So the intent here is not to solve everything that we need to solve over the next year plus, but at least to start to stake out the top priorities and what the secondary priorities are, and start to position ourselves to engage them. So again, I would propose that one of the priorities for the next year, we have an obvious one, which is a statutory compliance issue, which is the preparation and adoption of the affordable housing, 5-year affordable housing plan for Old Lyme. So we're going to need to get at that relatively quickly. I don't propose we start that tonight, just be more organizational tonight. So that's time sensitive for end of June 2022. The other time sensitive thing that Tim brought up, and we've already discussed a few times, is the McCulloch Family Open Space
Absolutely.
opportunity. It expires in September of 2024, but I wouldn't get comfortable with that because there's more to that option than meets the eye. If you recall, when we had Amanda Blair in to talk to us last year, there are some potentially bedeviling details.
Parking logistics and driveway logistics
in the option. So I think that's going to be something we're going to want to get after right away. And
you may want to think about doing a subcommittee for the building like that, for that, because that really needs to get legs soon.
So you've been working on my reading skills over the I completely agree. And I would say so hold that thought.
Okay.
Okay. The last thing is community outreach, and I think we want to talk about how to just wrap our heads around that and approach it tonight. Second priority, we have some standing functions for the commission if you read the founding ordinance. So longer term, we're going to want to build a network within the town government, within the community, and some of our external stakeholders, the region, other towns, developers, advocacy groups. There's a lot out there that we're going to want to just get contacts with and tap into their expertise and their perspective. So network building, I think, is just, we start it and it's a process and it's going to go on for as long as we're in existence because it's going to evolve. Absolutely. The second long-term thing is one of our roles is to become an expert on this area of affordable housing and actually serve as an advisor to the land use regulatory commissions, whether that's planning or zoning. So I don't think we're in a position to do that yet, but that's something we're going to need to grow into as our expertise builds and our network builds. So it's all over type to grow into that. So that's something that I think is just going to be an ongoing piece of work, and I'm not sure how it will reflect in the agenda, but it'll show up through networking in the town, outside of the town, bringing in guests to talk. We'll want to talk more about how do we become the experts and how do we grow into being a trusted advisor on matters pertaining to affordable housing for the rest of the town. It's not something that's going to happen overnight. We're going to have to own it. Okay, 7.2. Anything else? Anyone, before I go on, anyone want to comment on priorities? Anything you perceive that should be a priority for us that hasn't been mentioned, or that?
Do you have a budget? Do you have any money? Do you have a budget?
We have a small budget for legal fees. We have a small budget for materials. We can have a clerk if we have a meeting that would require a clerk to take minutes. We'll have that. What we don't have is any consulting resources. So we don't have any big ticket items for consulting. And I think my instinct is we're okay on that for two reasons. One is there's just a huge amount of material already out there, just a click away online. And some of these reports were prepared by the same consultants that we might hire to prepare one for us. So there's a huge amount of material out there. The other is I've been really impressed with RiverCog, so I think we want to, and they do have resources, and they have already shown that they're going to dedicate some of those resources to planning specifically for Old Lyme. So I feel pretty good about that. So I hope that answered your question, Karen. So yeah, we have some sort of logistical resources. We don't have any big ticket resources to, hold major public forums or engage consultants. If it turns out we need those, we can pursue that.
Yeah, we know who to ask.
Come to me.
Okay, anything else on that priority? So we'll just we'll move forward with the 830J plan, the McCullough Family Open Space option, and community outreach is really and we'll see those probably occupy the bulk of our agenda going forward. Which brings us to committees. Okay, committees. So here are my thoughts, and then I'll open up for discussion. My take is that committees would probably be a good thing. I don't think, help me with the terminology, I'm still looking on this. It would be a committee. Since we're a commission, if we formed a committee, it would be a committee, not a subcommittee. So
Exactly.
So my understanding is that we are able to create committees. And that would do a couple of things. One is, and this is really important, which is it'll allow us to extend our reach outside the commission. So committees don't have to be exclusively comprised of folks who are on the commission.
Wow, that's great news.
So we can go outside and find experts or people who may not want to be a long-term commissioner but may be interested in doing a project and coming in and helping us, and they have some specific knowledge that we could use.
Great.
So that to me is one of the great reasons to.
It may require that the committee follow a lot of the protocol that the commission does in terms of minutes and agenda and all
Absolutely, that was my next note. So
that.
the good news is that it will ensure transparency because they will be bound by FOIA, and we'll be expected to subscribe to the same practices that the commission does. So it'll be a transparent way to extend our reach and get out into the community and find people that can help us. So I think that would be a really good thing. But there will be that overhead of agenda minutes, posting meetings, posting a meeting calendar and a meeting schedule. So but my take is it would be worth it. Any thoughts on that when you open it up for discussion?
No, I think it's great. I mean, we've used that at the Board of Ed quite successfully, around sustainability, where, nobody in the school really had a grip on, what that means. But the town members did, and they were able to contribute a lot. And so I think it's a very useful tool to have. And we did the same FOIA, 24 hours in advance notice and all that kind of stuff. So it worked out very well.
Tim, any concerns other than the FOIA compliance?
No, good way. Good idea.
John, did that check your box?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay.
You would think you would have to have at least one commission member, obviously.
Yes.
Either the
Yeah, I think we'd want
chairing it or
One or two.
Yeah.
one or two, and then maybe potentially three if there's
Yeah.
voting. My sense is there's probably not going to be a lot of voting going on
Not
in
in
the
the-
committees. It's
not in the
more going to be processing.
And it'd be more like proposals to this commission.
And then-
Exactly.
right.
And then the commission.
So they had no
And then the
decision
commission
on
Committee
this.
will present here, and then we'll
Yeah.
vote here.
Yep.
Yeah.
That
Okay.
makes the most sense.
So with that in mind, we're going to want to talk. I think we're going to want to talk about committees in the specific context of those three top priorities. And I took the liberty of drafting a potential charge for a McCullough Family Open Space Committee because that's active right now. And I think we've been.
Kicking the can around a bit.
Yeah, and I think Amanda came to see us last August.
Yeah.
So that's been out there. So let me pass
We're
this.
having so much fun with COVID.
Pass this around. Tim, thanks for staying for this. I'm really glad you're going to be here for this discussion.
Oh, wow, pleasure.
Thank you.
So what this reflects is just trying to stake out some process for identifying, fielding, if not evaluating, to Tim's earlier point, proposals to acquire and develop those 2 parcels within the McCulloch family open space. So this is very much in draft form now. I don't expect that we're going to have a vote on this tonight. We're going to need to think through, is there anything missing? I really want to make sure that all of our heads are in the game on this. And we're going to want to identify who we would want on this committee, including folks from the commission. And importantly, I think we want to go off and think about who would benefit us from in the community from joining from the community at large. So just walking through it, I'll also say that if we don't stand up a committee tonight, which I wouldn't propose we do, it's not going to stop us from moving forward on this, because if you look at the overall charge is to provide the Affordable Housing Commission, that's us, with feasible in-principle proposals for exercising the option to develop affordable housing on the designated envelopes within the core criminal space. So that will include. So this first one's a doozy, which is gaining a thorough understanding of the terms and conditions as well as the practical, technical, and regulatory considerations surrounding the option. So there's nothing, if we don't have a committee stood up, there's nothing that would prevent us from bringing Amanda in to talk to us and refreshing our memories on that. I also have all the documents that she provided us last year, and I'll send those out. I was reluctant to increase the barrage of reading that I was sending on you, so I'll do it after this meeting. So the first item is really getting a depth of understanding. And I've spoken with Amanda, and she is very willing to help us on this. She's keen to see that option successfully exercised. So I think we have a good basis to get that first one done. Consulting with stakeholders, and that could be stakeholders externally in the community, and definitely within the town with us. The Planning Commission, if you recall, when we talked to Amanda last year on the committee, Harold had some thoughts from planning. So we're going to definitely want to get planning and zoning and land use. Tim has suggested getting Dan Beret engaged on this. And Tim, we had also talked about potentially getting someone for the Board of Selectmen to sit in with this committee so that you could have a real-time pipeline of information and feedback. And based on what I've listened in on your meetings in the past, I think Chris Kirk probably has some thoughts on this, and maybe we can recruit Chris as an ex officio for this. Again, this is just a draft. So providing a point of contact for any parties that want to looking to exercise the option, actively reaching out to organizations that may have had some success in this area before, working towards proposals that include feasibility but do not include specifics around a transaction or bid. So I don't think we want to get into the details of a transaction. We really want to, for the committee, my suggestion would be, and it's wide open for discussion, would be that we focus on feasibility. So when we look at the details and some of the considerations that are going to have to be accommodated in a plan, can we evaluate those proposals so that they're going to work within those details and within those parameters.
Well, one of the things about those sites, this may actually be something we can also springboard off to. There's not a fluid understanding of affordable housing in town, possibly. So if we took these sites and maybe self-developed them using local people to, sort of the local contractors, and so everybody sort of gets, it's a barn raising type thing. Just something to think about.
I love that.
Because you get people who are interested, they're interested in the project, there's a lot of great people in Old Lyme, and a lot of people love to give their time, their money. So this might be one of those things where, hey, we got a new committee, we did the look commission, now we have a commission, and hey guys, we want to develop these, and there's some nuts and bolts we have to work out about it, but it certainly could be really a good thing.
Yeah.
And you know, people who've been around doing the business for a long time, people that are new guys, there's always people willing to help, especially here.
I agree, John. I think having a successful project as both, you know, the most important thing is providing places for people to live, but if it could be a good demonstration for the community on what could be, I think that
Exactly.
success breeds success.
But that would not be managed by this commission.
No. Oh, Jen, could you use your spare time?
You know, open space might, you know, since they're more or less the, I wouldn't say owner of the property,
They're
but
the steward of it.
close to it.
Yeah.
They may have to actually do and I think actually some of the documentation at the state level, such as the Attorney General, are still waiting for some of this stuff to be executed.
Yeah.
It's a little nutty.
Yeah, Amanda's going to be a key contact, and I think we're going to want...
She's very much on top of it, and the Attorney Cody at the Sussman Shapiro is very involved as well.
Good. That might be a good hybrid, you know, have people from open space and people from our committee together on a subcommittee.
Yep.
And that way, everybody's sort of, again, working together and that whole teamwork thing.
Gets on the same page and stays there.
Exactly. But it'd be good for a springboard for the other projects that or other things we do in the future.
Tim, I wonder if do you know if there's any flexibility with the McCullochs on the property itself, boundaries, or the access road or anything like? Is there any?
It's pretty cut and dry if you look at the plot plan.
Yeah, I think it's fairly.
It's pretty tight.
No, that's what I mean. But is there can somebody go back to them and say this really doesn't work, or?
I guess
there are a lot of things that don't work for that property, but.
Well, I don't know that it doesn't work at this point. I mean, the road access to the existing houses would continue on to these.
Yeah.
So.
And that's worked for 10 years, or however long they've been there.
Yeah, and I think there needs to be some discussion about the road itself, because that's also there. Off the road is access to a trail and so forth. And
parking.
Right now, people park in the cul-de-sac, so. But you know, this would be the minutia of getting into it.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Those bedeviling details.
Absolutely.
I just didn't know if there was any flexibility with it, or if this is what it is.
I don't know, because the state of Connecticut's involved. And, I guess.
How are they involved?
It's filed.
Conservation easements and stuff.
Okay.
And Amanda can amplify that.
Okay.
So this is just something to think about, Tim. I invite you to think about this too, and I'll reach out to Amanda and see where we want to take this.
Yeah.
But this is just an attempt to engage this and not let it rest for any longer.
Yeah.
Okay, any other thoughts on the McCulloch Family Open Space potential for a committee? We've got a little more thinking to do on this, but we're going to want to move along.
So what do you want us to do with this? Is just basically revise it?
Yeah, provide any feedback if anything's missing. I think is not consistent with what we're trying to do. So, yep.
And then we're thinking about committee members.
Engage our collective brain and exactly.
So if anybody has ideas on committee members, I want to send them to you.
Yeah, and then I would see coming up with a slate for folks to focus on. And in parallel, I'll reach out to Amanda and have a discussion with her on this. And
How big is a committee typically?
I think it's fit for purpose.
Okay.
Yeah, so do 3, probably 3, make it easy.
3, I've seen them in 6. I know when Suze was on the Board of Ed doing the building committee, that was 10 or 12. That was huge.
That's a big project.
Yeah.
Odd number, probably.
Yeah. Well, I'm not sure how many. Yeah, we'll definitely want to do that. Okay. Continuing on.
Do you want that by the next meeting or by next week, or?
Yeah. you could provide any feedback, over the next week, I'd appreciate that, just so that I have an opportunity to talk to Amanda and Tim and I circle back on this. We have our collective thinking reflected in it. And I will ask...
Before we leave this point, I was just wondering, the line about reaching out to other organizations that have known to have been successful in completing projects like this. Is there any concerted effort to reach out to those parties, or is your suggestion that the committee would be responsible for that?
I would think that the committee would go to them and then do it through that, right?
Yeah.
That's what we talked about in the previous commission.
Yep.
Okay, so other nonprofits that have done this before,
Or even a developer that would be sympathetic or reasonable, because there's people that, this is their wheelhouse.
I'm not saying that it has to be a certain
Sure.
group or a certain organization, but I was captivated by the word successful when doing a project.
Well, back to John's earlier point, it would be great if we could, if this could be
a real enlightening people for the town, sort of saying.
Well, I think, I didn't mention it, but Americus, where we visited in Georgia, happens to be right next door to Plains, Georgia. So I had the pleasure of meeting Jimmy Carter, but
nice.
in Americus is the international headquarters for Habitat for Humanity, which we visited. I think that our organizations out there will probably, I don't want to say chafe at the bit, but they are very interested in opportunities very much like this in order to fulfill a commitment on their part to build affordable housing. So, if I'm just asking, Habitat comes to mind because
they're the biggest.
I've been involved with it before, but there are other organizations that do
I
something.
think Habitat will definitely be involved because there's been already been conversations.
So kind of coming back to my question, is it the committee or is it the commission that should make those?
Committee might introduce it, and then the commission will move it forward in a vote.
All right.
So we're to, hey, here are the 3 people or 5 people, whatever, that are interested. But you also see what people have on their plate. In other words, maybe Habitat's resources are tied up for something. I mean,
I still want a lot of people doing the same work, not knowing what the other person's doing, and contacting the same organizations.
No.
Go ahead, Bill, please.
The committee would be, there would be a report back to the commission each time that we're moving, like a progress report, even without a full...
you guys will find it. It's very transparent, and Michael's very communicative.
Yeah.
I would see it as a standing agenda item to have the
Committee
report out and just give an update.
And probably open space needs to be a principle in the committee.
Absolutely.
They brought it this far.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Yeah.
And just to your point, just as background, Habitat has engaged in discussions with us as an exploratory committee last year, and then also just more recently with Steve and others from the church as far as, what opportunities Habitat, this is Eastern Connecticut Habitat, which serves New London County, might have. So they definitely are engaged with it.
Another what I would consider to be fairly obvious potential outreach point would be the Hope Partnership. They've actually developed the properties that are adjacent to these envelopes.
Didn't we develop them? No, they were deeded over to them? Yeah, we developed them.
They own the...
Old Lyme Affordable Housing, when it disbanded, they actually
They
gave
acquired
them
it?
the Hope.
Okay.
Yeah, they did.
Yeah.
Actually, those properties were a feel-good town
Thing.
project.
That's great.
That's why we were thinking maybe bring that back, because a lot of people are very fuzzy on what affordable housing is about, who lives there, and type thing. Just not in a bad way, just that they want to give out. It's a giving community.
Thanks for starting that out.
Yeah, it kind of goes to the point about community outreach, John, which is the definition of what we're talking about as far as affordable housing goes.
Parameters,
The
what income
perception,
levels.
that some of the community might have is that it's Section 8 housing, which is not necessarily the case. So I think maybe in some kind of community outreach, when we get to that part, we should be clear about what affordable housing is that we're talking about and what we're addressing versus like Habitat addresses 30% of AMI families. They don't go after 80% of AMI families, they go after 30% of AMI families. So there's a large discrepancy between those two. There's a big gap between 30 and 80% of AMI in a $94,000 AMI community like Old Lyme. So there's different ways of saying what is affordable versus.
But it also helps out people that are just starting here, younger,
Yeah.
or people that want to come and do certain jobs in town can't afford to be here, and then also the people that are sunsetting.
Well, the other item, if you think about it, though, the difference between Habitat and creating affordable housing is the goal to create a home that is eventually owned by a resident of Old Lyme, or is it a rental unit?
It'll be owned.
Heretofore, the affordable housing entity owns the land, and then the people who acquire, they build the house, and then they own the improvement.
Right.
And the land stays, and the land gets a tax break with the town at the moment. So there's no tax applied to the land, but there is tax applied to the structure. And then when the family departs, they sell the structure, and then the land that's the deed restriction part of it. So
they can make a 10% appreciation, so they're boxed, and it's got to be too affordable because it's deeded to affordable. So it's a nice thing. Michael, I got to take off.
Okay.
And with these two lots,
Good to see you.
Appreciate it.
with these two lots, the Open Space Commission is due on sale amount. So that would figure into the equation here.
Yep.
Yeah.
Again, my proposal would be to not get into negotiation at first, just say that's how it's written, and if all the other boxes can be checked, the feasibility, bring it forward, and then if the Board of Selectmen is on board and Open Space is on board, then we can get into.
So that's specific to that particular parcel?
Two lots.
Yeah.
The two.
Yeah.
Okay.
I will resume the barrage of documents and send you what is a very useful package of information that Amanda provided us with last
Something
August.
to put me to sleep tonight.
How could you sleep? Okay, anything else on this initial proposal? We've got a bit of thinking to do on it, but we'll do one good after. Okay, then. Next priority we want to wrap our heads around is this community outreach gap we have. Now, this is where I'm going to make a confession. I am a hopelessly left-brain scientist, and this kind of stuff is not in my wheelhouse. So I'm going to look to you all for help on thinking this through, and even what do we do first. So I don't necessarily propose that we do a workshop tonight on this, but at least if we could think about and discuss now a little bit then, where do we start on this?
Right, where do you get your information? Let's start off with that as town residents. Where do you get your information?
Where do you what?
Where do you get your information? Like, where do you learn about what's happening in town, and how do you interpret that? And if we can capture that on a larger scale, then we can make sure that the message is getting out appropriately.
Karen, did you find the guidance in that RPA guidebook that came in from DOH? They got a big section on community outreach.
No.
Did you find that useful?
I didn't even see. I don't think I actually. That was in the thing that you sent us?
Yeah, the Department of Housing Planning guidebook.
I didn't. No.
Yeah.
No, I didn't catch the community outreach section on that though.
Yeah, I forget what page it's on. George,
You didn't either? Okay, good. That makes me feel better. I'm like,
I'll see if I can get the PowerPoint presentation that
Okay.
Yeah, there was a PowerPoint accompanying this. This is,
one of the authors presented at that talk
I didn't print that out.
yesterday.
Well, you could do something, Mike, like in a change management perspective, because so I'm like a project manager, so I have to think very logically and those kind of steps. But from a change management perspective, if we wanted townspeople to understand,
That's what he's talking about.
define what it is. That's always the first step, is define what affordable housing is, and then
Thank you very much.
go on from there to see what their current attitude is versus what we want them to be understanding, or whatever. So from a change management perspective, you could do it in a very sequential, number of steps. And then, like to Karen's point, there's really relative. There's the Patch, Limeline, CT Examiner of the Day, and the Mirror.
Facebook.
Maybe the Mirror, for some people, but there's not a lot of venues for communication, and then the town website, but not a lot of people, go there on their own, kind of thing. So I think there's maybe a couple of things we could think about as far as just for a communications plan, but as part of an overall change management plan, if you will.
Bill, any thoughts from your tenure as a superintendent and having to work with the community?
So, I guess trying to get an understanding of what people's where people are at is usually comes from people being vocal at a meeting on such on a particular topic, and but one of the things would just be to try to get a pulse on what do people understand as affordable housing, and what actually at the recent rally a couple of weeks ago that was co-sponsored, really. I mean, it was Desegregate Connecticut, but also the Valley Stands Up, which originated in Essex, and a third one I don't remember. But somebody, really did a good job of trying to explain, the many facets of affordable housing as what was brought up before, single people, town employees, seniors, and single parents, as well as and including senior. I said senior citizens, I guess, and then and other people who've not been represented in the community. But it's not one group; it's many groups. And then, of course, there's the whole idea of why affordable housing would be good for our community. So a lot about the stuff about the demographics of our community and how the demographics are changing, and we are, a more elderly community. The number of, just in your report, the number of households with children under 18 years old, and then the demographic data about, over the next, where the population will be. I think people need to understand that better, and what the interests, why it's in everybody's interest to look at this. So how people get their information, and I don't know, did you say Facebook before, as when people were saying that?
Yeah, I don't do it myself, but I know my kids do it all
No,
over.
but a lot of people, and it just, as a superintendent and a principal, I could see how an issue, just one small issue sometimes, grows into this huge thing. Now, how you deal with that, I'm not even, if you have a Facebook page, that's another whole thing that has to be managed. But in any event, I think a lot more community information, a lot more ideas are spread on social media, a great deal, when you talk about how people get their information. And of course, that lends itself to a lot of stuff that's not necessarily factual. So I think trying to get a sense of what the community thinks about this. I mean, there is a place sometimes for surveys or.
Yeah, I know in the cookbooks for community engagement, one of the early steps tends to be
Community
a
survey.
pulse survey. And my question was, if there's misinformation out there and you publish the results of the survey, could that have the effect of actually reinforcing? Because I completely agree with you. I mean, until I personally got into this, I wouldn't have been able to tell you that half of the renters in town and nearly a third of the homeowners are cost burdened by housing. I didn't know that.
I'm not surprised by that, though. I mean, that doesn't surprise me at all.
But
Well, I think
it's that kind
that's
of
a good point. So maybe, maybe the surveys are kind of
second thing.
outdated, I mean, like over-surveyed, between a lot of the things that we do.
EDC did.
Yeah. HRIC and EDC have done so many surveys. But I don't know that it leads to just any better conclusions than what we already know, is that most of the town is uninformed about what actually cost burdening means and what affordable housing means. So maybe we just start and put it out there. So the results of the work and the data analysis that we did last year, maybe that's a good story, and we should just put that out there. And so, we met, and here's what we found from last year that the selectmen had that report on, and, these are the facts. In Old Lyme, this is a problem still, or it is a problem. We start with that, and then maybe that generates a little bit of interest, and like John said, maybe generate some, desire to participate in the McCullough property and other things that might come along, HRIC and, maybe development of that road as well. So, I don't know that we need a survey necessarily. It's going to tell us that most of the town is uninformed, because I think that's what it's going to tell us. But I don't want to presuppose it. But I'm not sure we're going to get a lot of valuable information out of it, rather than just going out there and just saying, this is what we did last year, and now we're starting this commission, and we're going forward, with the plan that the selectmen approved. So
Maybe after we see if it's
yeah.
The other thing about that is, if you presuppose what people might be thinking affordable housing is or isn't, then putting something together that's just very fact-based, based on what we already have, could be persuasive to maybe just change the mindset of people by giving them a lot of the data, of course,
in a digestible and resonant.
Yes, and it has to be a good, I mean, nobody wants to go through tables and charts and, so you have to just try to do it.
That's a good headline right there, So, cost burdening is a real thing, and so, I mean, if you're spending 50% of your income on rent or mortgage, and then add utilities and cable TV to that and the phone bill, then, you only have 10% of your income to spend on food.
That's actually helpful.
Yeah. Hey, Bobby.
Amy, any thoughts? You've done this for a living, so.
There was yesterday, there was a Connecticut Affordable Housing Zoom. It was on 9 a.m. yesterday morning.
Were you on that? Yeah, I was on
That
that.
was the call.
That was the Council of Small Towns.
Right. And I thought they were really good about this. Just on bringing people on board. I think the misconceptions around affordable housing are probably pretty high here. And the McCullough property actually is kind of an opportunity to help start educating people about that to some degree. And I was curious, Salisbury was able to do an affordable housing plan, and we were living up there temporarily, and it's the housing prices are similar to here, if not worse in some cases. But they have local news, like there's the Lakeville has a newspaper and that kind of thing. So it's easier to get out something specific to the community, but we don't have that.
We have Limelight.
Well, yeah.
We do it, you could do something in the line time.
Oh, Examiner.
So if you think, I'm just processing here, if you think that material, and actually the stuff that the Council of Small Towns presented yesterday was a digest of the stuff that's in the Department of Housing guidebook. So maybe just to try and bootstrap us into this, I already have a call in to get the slides that person from the consulting group used.
Mm-hmm.
So maybe I could get on those. I can distribute those to the group, and we can have a discussion about how we can potentially adapt that or not, and just use that as a starting point. My inclination is to not reinvent wheels unless we have to.
Yeah, they were kind of interesting about, they kept emphasizing creating a narrative for Old Lyme in terms of affordable housing. What's our story about it here instead of just affordable housing at large?
Right. So perhaps we could cherry pick, adapt.
The other thing that's coming to mind as Amy was talking about that is more regular, short pieces. In other words, build the understanding that there is a momentum going here in town to address this issue, both with the formation of the commission and why is there a commission? I mean, I could think of so many different pieces of this that people don't want to digest all at once, and maybe bits and pieces that are in whatever format, whether it's through the paper, through the newsletter. How often does the newsletter go?
It is quarterly.
Quarterly,
right.
The OLM event.
Right.
Yeah, quarterly.
And things of that nature, and just so that they see this as a vital commission, and it's almost like a little bit of, it's kind of like reporting of progress, but education at the same time. And if we were able to get this, some direction with the McCulloch property, that would be a super thing. And what John had said earlier, and just generating, using that as a way to get people to learn about this more.
Do you think it'd be worth having maybe an hour special meeting, just a workshop on this after we...
On community outreach?
Yeah. Just kind of brainstorming.
Sure.
All right. So,
Can I build on his idea?
please do.
It's funny. I joined, or I put my name into consideration for joining this group based on the assumption that we're up against a deadline for some action. Now, action to a lot of people in town may be interpreted as, well, what are they telling us we need to do? But I think we have to turn that around and say, this is the opportunity we have to move forward on some important issues that maybe, we haven't addressed in town, and reach out to those people who don't really understand. In other words, the toolkit of understanding has to be, like you're saying, a re-education or a rethinking of what affordable housing means. And I think if we, instead of structuring it as a response to something that some other external force is saying we need to do, and create the idea that it's an opportunity for the town to do something. I'm sorry he's not here, because he jumped into the idea. Let's barn raise. Let's get out there with backhoes and get going on this. I think that that enthusiasm is in town. I just think that people don't understand what they're being asked to do, or they don't know how to join the cause. So that's not an original thought. I just read these 3 pages.
Oh, good.
But what it's saying is we need effective communicators and a communication of the positive aspects. Reaching out, not to discuss the inequities, but discuss the equities of doing what we're doing. In other words, creating equity and creating a positive.
So, thank you, George. So we're not going to solve this tonight, obviously, or anything else. Can I propose that we schedule a special meeting to take this thinking to the next step and also to take the public family open space to the next step? I'm not sure we want to wait a month to do that. So if you're amenable, I can look for an opportunity in the next couple of weeks, either in person, which I think for workshopping is a good thing, or we could do a Zoom, which is probably less effective for this, but we'll do what we must. And then maybe identify someone from this group or pairs of people to do a kind of lead a discussion on next steps for both of those key priorities. Does that work for folks?
Yeah.
I'm just kind of thinking on my feet here.
Yeah, I can lead a discussion on anything.
Take the McCulloch family?
Sure. Yeah, for sure.
Any volunteers to lead a discussion on the community outreach topic?
I would be happy to. However, I feel like I don't know the community as well.
I know the community. So tell me what you really need me to do and by when, so it's in my brain. I hate to commit to something I can't.
Thanks, Karen, for that. Seriously. I would say 2-week time frame. Go through some of the ideas that were kicked around tonight and the RPA, the Department of Housing guidebook, and just lead a discussion on.
Karen, you want to switch? Like, I'll do community outreach because it's more in my change management communications stuff, and you do McCulloch. Sure. And that might be easier for me.
I'm tremendously busy, so I just want to make sure I know what I commit to. I hate to drop the ball.
Yeah, and I can work with you on the McCulloch thing because I know I'm kind of networked in with Amanda and some of the other stakeholders, so I can work with you on that.
I think we need a tagline, Jen. Not that I want to tell you, but I mean, I was thinking to myself right off the bat, we need a tagline like creating opportunities or something that's positive.
Mm-hmm.
It doesn't have to say anything about affordable housing. We're creating opportunities.
Yeah.
Building the future.
And it doesn't give a lot of information, but we don't have a lot of information quite frankly yet, but we're looking for opportunities, and that's all we're doing.
Yeah. Yeah, I think so. Yeah, I think, to the town's benefit, I mean, it's been shown numerous times, and Habitat is also, Eastern Connecticut Habitat, the building of affordable housing, creates such a bigger tax base for the towns that it's in, that's because another added benefit, is that these are now tax-paying property owners or dwellers, that contribute to the economy of the town, may work in the town where they are and things like that. So there's a lot of benefits to it. There's definitely upsides.
Sort of stress the fact that a lot of seniors downsize. Either they leave or they stay, and if they can't stay because of the affordability aspect,
We lose the tax
they
base
lose
on that
them.
too, yeah.
And then, the people who grew up here would like to stay here. So you can kind of play to personal experiences people may have in their own lives that they might be motivated to help out.
And they, we lose not only money, we lose social capital that comes from people staying in a town and being part of the town.
People who work here, entry-level teachers, public safety employees, service industry that don't have to drive here.
In a lot of the stuff for SB 1024, there was a lot of information about what are some of the positive aspects without, just that come from affordable housing. And I think that you might be right about a tagline, and maybe the tagline doesn't have to be affordable housing, but but there's a lot of really good stuff that was put out there about why this is good, things that are good for communities.
Yep. Yeah, and Habitat certainly has a lot of that too. So I think this is
Okay, we just took off the second last agenda.
So you'll be looking for another date, a date like within
Prior
a couple
to
of
June
weeks?
16th.
Mm-hmm.
So I would say,
after Memorial Day.
oh yeah.
Memorial Day.
So early June, and it won't have more of the standard agenda. It'll be more of a workshop, open discussion and planning
On those two.
on those two things. Yeah, and since it'll be a special meeting, there'll be no ability to change it or expand it. So,
Can the public attend a special meeting?
say again?
Can the public attend our special meeting?
Oh, they have to.
Yes. Yeah.
Yeah, they have to be. Special meetings are just as public as this is a special meeting because we didn't have a calendar.
Oh, that's true.
So, yes. Okay. Good. Thanks, everybody. Less everybody need out. We've got a fair amount of work to do. And thanks for all the great ideas. Keep them coming. Okay. That solved agenda item 8. I'm going to switch to public comment now. Prior to adjournment, and I will start with the folk in the room.
Hey, all of us? Yes, all of you.
Well, listen, I'm here. My name is Steve Youngkite. I'm the senior minister of the Congregational Church down the street. And I want to say I'm really, really grateful for all of you and for your work and for your dedication to this task. I also want to say that if there is interest, there is significant energy in our community in working on a habitat partnership to develop those McCullough properties. So that's something we would actively welcome participation in as a partnership. Whatever the formulation might be. But that's something that there's a significant interest in our community toward working on. It's something we've done in the past. It's been about 20 years since we've engaged a Habitat build. We did that in East Lyme when we did it prior. Our community is also looking to South Africa to participate in a massive Habitat build. Where about 200 houses were built in a matter of a week. That was with Jimmy Carter. That was back in 1998. So there's a long history of working on habitat builds. And again, there's just within our community a sense that it's time to do that again. If it happened on the McCullough properties, that would be welcome. But perhaps there are other places as well. So anyway, just note that, and leave it to you to determine what to do with that. But just know that we would love to participate in whatever way we can.
Thank you, Steve. It's good to know that energy and engagement is out there. Okay, I will.
Is anybody on the phone line?
I will go to the phone line and see if anyone's hung in. Okay, unmute 99.
All participants are being asked to unmute themselves.
Okay. If there's anyone on the phone line that would like to make a public comment to the Affordable Housing Commission, the line is open.
Wore down.
We have time to do that.
Okay, I'm gonna suggest it.
Need my name again?
All participants have been muted.
Okay. Okay, so I think that does it for this agenda. Thanks, everyone. We managed to get out here within 2 hours. I'm going to try to shoot for that.
Thank you for organizing everything co-op.
Great ideas.
Set a date,
We didn't. I'm going to go look for availability rooms and then propose something where we can actually get together in a space with a whiteboard and brainstorm a little bit. Thank you, Tim.
I think he's doing the door.
Okay, good. Mother Nature's turning out the lights on.
Just sunsetting it.
Okay, quick check of the agenda. Did we get it done? Okay, that's it. I will entertain a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
Adjourn. Second by Bill. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Oh,
Yeah, it's unanimous.
aye.
Okay, that was Jen. And
Nice to meet everyone.
Yeah, nice to meet you too.
the meeting is adjourned.
Thanks for joining us.
Thank you.